Last week, we had Mr. V. Invergian enlightening us on the evolution of legislation on arbitration. Today, as a part of this webinar, we'll be covering a relevant topic in the current climate, online arbitration during COVID-19. Showering his wisdom on this topic will be today's distinguished speaker, a legal luminary, Padma Shri Dr. T.K. Vishwanathan. A lawyer, former Secretary General of Lok Sabha, a former Law Secretary to the Government of India, Dr. Vishwanathan has played a crucial role in drafting of major revolutionary enactments such as the Information Technology Act, the Competition Act, and the recent Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016. Dr. Vishwanathan, who has 2 doctorates to his name, has contributed numerous notable articles to various journals and has authored books, namely Legislative Drafting and Handbook on Arbitration, Mediation, and Other ADR Techniques. He is also editor of the newsletter of International Center of ADR. Dr. Vishwanathan was consultant to former President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, and is presently chairman of Bankruptcy Law Reforms Committee, and he's also the chairman of the expert committee to review the cyber laws and the Information Technology Act. We welcome you, sir, and it is a great honor to be able to hear you speak today.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhargavi. Thank you.
Before we get started, I would like to remind all the participants to have your microphones on mute and to reserve your questions for the Q&A session at the end. And if you wish to communicate during the meeting, kindly use the chat window option within the Google Meet. And without any further ado, I request our honorable speaker to take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhargavi. Shall I start?
Yes, sir.
Good morning to all of you, and especially to my friend, Mr. Justice Padmanabhan, and all our youngsters who are gathered here. I mean, it's really a wonderful opportunity for me to talk to people from Chennai, to which I belong, and from where I launched my career into the legal field. Many of you know me as a law teacher because I've been teaching here in the law college for more than 2 decades. I mean, nearly a decade, 12 years, whereafter I shifted to the government. In fact, I have moved with the law from every different angle. I started with law and books, teaching law. Then I went into law in the making, drafting law. Then I went to law commission, then went to the law in the making, law in action. Then I went from parliament where law was made. Then ultimately to the president where he was signing the assent copies. So my life had turned 360 degrees into the law, in and out. It refuses to go away. Even after retirement for more than a decade, it keeps coming to me, and my fingerprints are on many things. So let me plead guilty for many of the legal ills which are ailing your system, because this arbitration is something which I battled in the law ministry for more than 10 years. We tried to change this arbitration scenario, and at that time I was in law commission when then the law minister came and told the chairman of the law commission, Jeevan Reddy, we need to have a look at this Arbitration Act 1996. We all know that the Arbitration Act 1996 was brought in with a great amount of fanfare, implementing the model law on arbitration of UNICITRAL. It was a good law, but then you know what? The mistake we did at that point of time, we tried to have a single law for both international and as well as for domestic arbitration. That was a fatal flaw which has still now we are not able to get over the difficulties. We implemented in one go international arbitration for domestic arbitration, and we threw out our advantages we had in our Arbitration Act of 1940. We had, of course, it was not working well, but all the thing and everything was around, and that's history. So when Arun Jaitley asked us to look into the Arbitration Act of 1996 in 2000, we were a bit hesitant because it was only 4 years and the law is not taken off. What do we do? There was a problem about granting a interim relief in an arbitration proceedings. There was a case in the Delhi High Court. Justice Kripal had flagged it. So we were asked to look into that. As it would have it, after we took up this job very seriously, and the entire thing was reviewed by Justice Jagannath Rao and Justice Jeevan Reddy, and we came out with the report. What happened? This report, then the government changed, and 2004 when the government came, They said we will re-look into this report, and and the bill was brought in to implement the report. And the committee under Sudarshan Achipan also gave a report saying that it's too intrusive. You're trying to interfere into the arbitration process where autonomy is affected, so the bill has to be re-looked at. So it went in. No, for many years we were dabbling with this law of arbitration, and and everybody was talking about making India as a hub of international arbitration, and everybody was telling Singapore, Singapore, Singapore. And then as a legal advice to the government, I was frequently confronted with the problem that many of the arbitrations were seat of arbitration was London, Singapore, Paris, or Geneva. They were asking why don't you have it in India? What's the problem? Why you have to send your lawyers and arbitrators incurring a lot of costs? And why do you want to go after LCA or ICC or whatever it is? Why you have not developed an institution? We tried everything and we tried to identify it, but then all of you know, we came to Chennai also. We had 2-3 seminars here, many years. Many laws we thought about, many amendments were brought about, and each amendment brought its own problems. Then very recently, AP Shah also gave a report on the Law Commission. When the matter rests there, nothing has improved. Now, we come back to the today's topic, online arbitration, and online ADR, you can call it, because mediation is now gathering momentum and it's becoming more popular than arbitration because of the costs involved. In 2003, I wrote an article on online mediation, how online mediation can take off. Spain had taken a lead, and in universital meetings in New York and Vienna, we used to debate about the possibility of online platforms dispensing justice. This sounded a very interesting thing for consumer disputes where there are cross-border implications and there is a flow of trade, international trade across the borders. And that was a time when e-commerce was picking up, and they were talking about how people can transact business over the net, and disputes, if they arise, how do we handle them? So this appeared to be a there should be an online platform to deal with these complaints and grievances. That is how it started. Now, we have a very interesting situation now. We all know that the information technology has changed the way we do business, the way we lead our life. It was thought to be a great change from the industrial society into an information society. But then it didn't stop there. From the internet, what did it do? It sounded the death knell of the distance. Distance was not a matter of with any importance. People can transact business anywhere. They don't have to travel. And it was very fascinating. Technology was fascinating. Things were moving at a great speed. And everybody is talking about internet, etc., etc. Slowly what happened? Technology overtook us. Sensors came into the picture, and we started getting entangled our presence. So from internet, then we switched on to internet of things. Then it became suddenly somebody woke up and said, "Oh God, my privacy is gone." By the time you realize, it's already gone. Life all over has been taken over by the four technical giants: Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and another company, Amazon. These are the four companies who are going to dictate our lives. Not only our lives, they are going to dictate terms to the governments. No government is above them. Even US government doesn't know. Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook doesn't care two straws for the American Senate or the Congress. He doesn't care. These are the companies who are having everything now. They have data, they have power, and the governments are literally begging them. This is whether you like it or not, our sovereignty has been lost. Now, in this scenario, we have a very limited way of looking at a justice dispensing system. Now we had this COVID-19. What happened? Internet destroyed the distance. COVID has destroyed the space. The space where we're sitting, people are getting connected and going very close, becoming very close. Suddenly you find the whole space has been destroyed. We don't have a space now. We all moved out. We can't meet. There is a minimum of 1 feet, 1 meter distance you have to maintain now. So it is now a very peculiar situation when we are moved out of the physical space, and physical space has been lost. Now, justice dispensary system can also should accommodate this thing. Law is always very conservative. People are very slow to respond to changes, and technology is something which is very fast moving, and we are all overawed by technology. Something we are all fascinated. We are overawed by technology because we don't understand many of them, and we find that it's a great thing. But then it's not. There is nothing in the technology. It's only our creation, and they have to help us to ease our way of living, our way of doing things, which includes justice dispensation also. There is nothing about this technology. You talk about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing. It has to depend upon some pre-existing data. You need to have data. All of us have artificial intelligence. Our knowledge is artificial intelligence. There's nothing great but the data, the processing power is able to throw up many things. Now, online arbitration is now becoming very important for the simple reason arbitration is becoming very expensive, travel, costs, etc. And the doing arbitration on online has problems for the simple reason many of us are not familiar with the way how to transact online to deal with. But this will be a temporary phase where we all learn. We are in the process of learning, and I think we'll overcome that. The bandwidth has to be there, and then you have to have real-time connectivity, and then other supporting systems are required. Now, what do you mean by online arbitration? What do you need for that? What are the infrastructures you need to have a successful online arbitration? First of all, an online arbitration has to be, or a mediation, has to be administered by a service provider. You need a person, a service center with the technological know-how and facilities to connect people and bring out on one single platform. This online arbitration poses many advantages also, of course challenges, but advantages are many. For the simple reason, you can have synchronous and asynchronous communication. Normally in arbitrations, you have to have a meet. Arbitrations have to meet. Lawyers have to be present there, then plead the case, and cases are going on. But in an online arbitration, what happens when you have synchronous and asynchronous communication? It all can be time shifting. You can do it your time, and it can be accessed by the arbitrations at their time. And when it is necessary, they can meet and they can discuss at a real time. We have now tele-immersion. We are all immersed. We are all in one place. We are not in one place, but we are in one screen. Now we have a virtual court like this. People sitting from US, from UK or France or any place, they all appear on the screen. So we have a virtual court, and you call it tele-immersion. So we are all tele-immersed, and then we have a virtual courtroom. Then where is the need for people to meet in a court and sit and talk? This will save a lot of time and costs. You don't have to hire an office. And I don't know the major criticism against the modern arbitration is that it's done in 5-star hotels. It's very expensive. So this is one of the issues. Why are you having in 5-star hotels? Why are you going to London for having every time a sitting? These are all things which very easily can be taken care of when you have online arbitration. It will reduce the cost. Secondly, what happened? This online arbitration has the advantage of everything being recorded. It's something which may have to be, arbitrators will have to be very careful because there cannot be any casual gossip or things which, we have a lot of anecdotal evidence about how these arbitrations are being held. I don't want to share it, all of you know. So all those things will come to an end. There will be business, time will be money, and everything will be on record. So it's very easy for you to review it. And that's the way it will be done. So we amended the law recently. The government has created an arbitral institution to grade institutional arbitrations in India. But unfortunately, in India, institutional arbitration has not taken off. It has to take off, but more is ad hoc arbitration. And if these institutions are graded and technology is brought in, and we can have lot of online arbitration avenues, And I think you can take the lead here in South, in Chennai, because Chennai and the Madras High Court, the lawyers of the Madras High Court are supposed to be very experts in the Code of Civil Procedure. The knowledge about the Civil Procedure Code is very pathetically lacking in many of the courts in the North. Many of them have not have seen the Code of Civil Procedure or the Indian Evidence Act. They do practice in high courts and they just jump into the Supreme Court. So I think Madras has a very inherent advantage, natural monopoly in this area, knowledge. I think arbitration also, we can take the lead. I don't see any, if you see, Singapore has gone ahead. They have gone far ahead, mainly because it's very proactive. Their courts are very proactive. Very rarely our awards are being set aside by the courts, and the autonomy of the parties is respected. If India has to emerge as a hub of international arbitration, the next hope is only online arbitration, and COVID-19 presents us as a great challenge and also an opportunity for our lawyers and arbitrators to migrate to the online platform. I can go on talking many things, but then I would like to interact with more of you because many of your eminent people are sitting there. That will give me more add value addition to this seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful talk on the topic for the need of the hour. So we'll ask participants to discuss with you.
Yes.
Yes. And with your permission, we'll now open the floor for a few questions.
Yeah.
Yes. I request the participants to type in your questions in the chat window. And after that, you can ask your question when we request you to unmute it. If anybody has a question or you want to discuss, please do unmute your mic and.
Okay, I have a question. This is Sai Bhaskar. Sir, with your experience, what do you think could be the reason that adaptation of technology with respect to judicial system, arbitration, all the judicial aspects, that it's a bit slow when compared to other fields? What do you think could be the reason, sir?
No, actually, as I told you, law is the only field where the profession is very slow in adapting to changes. Banking systems, the chartered accountants, they've all gone ahead. I gave the new law, the bankruptcy code. You find, I wanted also lawyers to come into this in a big way because it's a gold mine now. But unfortunately, they are not very much savvy about the market conditions, about the banking market and other things. Today, law, you can't confine yourself to your law in black letter law. As Justice Holmes said, the future law is a man of statistics and a master of economics. So you find lawyers, but I find youngsters are doing very well. The youngsters who are coming out of the law schools now are doing very well. And they are very savvy and they are going ahead. But I think in the due course of time, things will change. And we have to look into the entire process of recruitment into the judiciary. I am not very great admirer of people entering into the profession at 45 years. I think it should, you get young people into the judiciary right from the beginning and train them. Why should you wait for 45 years for a man to labor and toil and then you appoint him as a judge and he has a very short tenure, 10 or 12, 15 years and he retires? That is not the way. That is not the way you train people and extract work from them. Catch them young and then you train them. Of course, youngsters, they may lack experience, but then they will make mistakes. They'll learn from the mistakes and they'll pay for the mistakes, so they'll be wiser. So we have to get rid of this notion that only old people can dispense justice at the higher level. Youngsters should come in. The Supreme Court Chief Justice of the United States is a very young man, 45 or 48 years, quite possible. So we should not be very much obsessed with old age and wisdom, that's all no longer valid now. As a way the knowledge is progressing, you need to have health, you need to have energy, which old people are lacking. I'm very sorry, I'm also old. I also lost the fire which I used to have. So the future will change as the youngsters take over very gradually, and we should have this all India judicial service. That's necessary. It's highly essential that we should have that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We have Sabesan Manika Vasudam with a question here. Sir, what is lacking in Chennai to lead the ADR and how to overcome this lacuna? Sabesan Manika Vasudam, sir, you can unmute and have a discussion with sir.
No, actually, I'm not sure. It is not a peculiar problem to Madras or Chennai. Everywhere there is a reluctance, because even if you have this ADR, then ultimately it goes and lands in the court, ultimately litigation. So why do you again go through one layer and then waste your time and energy? That is it. But then, as the way things are progressing, when the litigation, the delays in the courts and other things, people should also compromise. They should say we should balance. They should weigh the balance. What it is, whether it's worthwhile to contest a case, all the trouble, unless you want to settle scores with somebody. So what is the point in wasting money and standing in the courts, etc., which is it is very torturous. I mean, whether you get justice or not, ultimately you should see which is balanced and see which is better. But I think as time goes, in USA, ADR is very popular because litigation is very expensive. They cannot afford. People cannot afford lawyers. But that should not be, because that should not be a case for ADR, because justice ultimately is everybody's right. You can't say that I will not dispense justice because our courts are clogged, we don't have energy, we don't have time, we don't have resources. That is not an argument. People want justice, they should get it. But then, there are various arguments. I think as time goes on, we will have mediation will be more popular, and people should realize it's not worth contesting in courts, cases in courts.
Thank you, sir. I think the next question is also like that. Sir, can you please let us know the difference between mediation and arbitration? Probably Ujwala Kadrekar wants to know the nuances of the difference, how it will help us during the online, during this COVID-19 situation.
Actually, in fact, I have to refresh my memory. Justice Jagannath Rao wrote an article on this, mediation and conciliation, where the conciliator plays a more proactive role. I will not be able to reflect more on that because my memory is not very fresh. But there is an article on that. You can forward it to you, because we handled this. Justice Rao wrote an article on this difference between mediation and conciliation. The conciliator takes a more proactive role, and the mediator acts more as a neutral. I'm not sure whether I'm right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And we have a question from Inba Vijayan Veeraraghavan, sir. Sir, whether any specific terms have to be included in arbitration clause to facilitate ODR?
No, normally all arbitration clauses today presage mediation, online, presage a mediation. It's not necessary it should be online. They should be prescribed that the parties can agree at any given point of time. They can agree to go online. It's not necessary it should be there, but it should be ideal if it's prescribed in the arbitration agreement.
Inba Vijayan, sir, if you want to further discuss on the question, you can unmute now and you can have a discussion.
Good morning, sir. Dr. Vishwanathan, sir. My question on this specific terms to be included in the arbitration clause to facilitate ODR was specifically on, I think there is a lot of problem when we are conducting online dispute resolution, particularly dealing with witnesses. When the arbitrators are dealing with the witnesses, there's high possibility of the counsel or any representative to coach the witness. We can defend it by putting a specific terms in the arbitration clause.
No, that you can do, but ultimately, for everything there is a scope for abuse. I mean, when you say they are coaching, at a time when they are testifying, they are being coached. Is it?
Yes, sir.
this problem arose about admission of video trials in the courts in US. Then they said the camera should swirl around the room to show who is standing where. So that will show you who is doing what. The camera should have a 360 degrees rotation so that you have a virtual presence of the court in the screen. So there's no scope for anybody to coach anybody there. That will be visible in the camera. I think technology has an answer for that. You should try that.
Surely, sir. One more thing I want to add, sir. I think many approaches, particularly the new approaches, to go for institutional arbitration. When we are opting for institutional arbitration, whether we have any institution in India which provides a platform for ODR.
No, there are some institutions, but but they don't have any recognition. There are many institutions which provide ODR, but then they don't have legal recognition. So there are many now. Many of them in Mumbai. 3 months back, I was in a conference. Many people were there running platforms on this and offering online facilities. There are.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We have another question. Sabesan Monica Vazagam asks, sir, what is the success rate in ADR in India?
No, success rate is not much. We don't have data. You see, unfortunately, arbitration and mediation, these are all not, there is no central agency to collect data. When we tried to reform the Arbitration Act, in 2006, when I was a law secretary, I wanted to collect data about the arbitrations, how many arbitration awards are being challenged and what have been struck down. And we had a World Bank aid. We had $500,000 aid given by World Bank to streamline the arbitration process. And we engaged the Indian Law Institute to undertake an empirical study to find out what's the real problem, why arbitral awards are being struck down, they are not enforced, and is giving a very bad name for us. Unfortunately, they tried, but no, we were not getting, because confidentiality clause. They said unless they challenge the award, we don't know. So collecting data became a very difficult thing. And unfortunately, in Indian legal research and legal reform, I was in Law Commission for more than 3.5 years. It's not possible to collect empirical data. Law reform is not based upon empirical data research. How do you have doctrinal research talking about rule against perpetuities and all those things which are the Britishers gave us? How does it matter now? Those are all days of gone. Today we need data. And you can collect data now. Technology facilitates that. So I recommended at some point of time to the government, you should have you have to undertake impact of legislation, how it acts, law in action studies. We talk about law in action, how the law functions in practice. That's very important. When now Parliament enacts a law and then they forget it, ministries are given the task of handling them, but no effort is made to find out whether that law is really working in practice, whether it is achieved, except for the Income Tax Act and the Excise Act where revenues involved, where they have perfect data to the last minute. They know which article, if they touch, how much revenue will Indian government will get. No other law requires so much attention. Maybe now GST. Other laws are left to fend the fizzle. Unless there is a difficult case, then the law will be amended, some committee will be appointed. We need real law and action studies. Every ministry was given in charge of a legislation, for example, Motor Vehicles Act, Surface Transport Ministry. It's like that, so many ministries are handling every act. So every ministry should come up every year, undertake a study, empirical data of how the law is functioning in the grassroots level. Government people said, no, we don't have energy, we don't have money, we don't have budget. What for you have law? Then I said, no, okay, you do that. The law schools are there. Involve the law schools, young students can go and conduct, let them go to the courts and the tribunals, sit there, meet the litigants. This is what they do in UK and other places. You go and find out in the field how your law is really being implemented. Is it not necessary? This is legal research, socio-legal research. And law reform should be based on that. And arbitration suffer the same fate. We all only have anecdotal evidence. We say this is wrong. That we don't have statistics. Everything is anecdotal, and many of them are very defamatory about the arbitrators also. Some may be true, some may not be true also. We do not know. But the kind of anecdotal evidence which is mastered to get amendments. It is not the way of doing real law reform. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we have Sri Ranjani Shivasubramaniam ma'am making an observation here. In this era of pandemic, ODR is poised to do well. Litigation costs can be slashed and dispute resolutions will be faster. ODR platforms are doing well. Any thoughts on that, sir?
No, this is going to happen whether you like it or not. It's been thrust on us. This COVID is not to go away in the near future. It's going to be a perennial problem till a vaccine is invented. Even then, the people way of doing business, everything is going to change, and people will be very difficult to move out of the space. It's all going to be online only. So whether we like it or not, this has damaged. I told you it has destroyed our space. So we have to think only of these lines, and I think this has a great future in also not only on ADR, on ODR, but also on other administration of justice itself.
Right, sir. Right. We also have a question from Pon Esaki, whether online arbitration procedure and video recorded version is allowed by current Arbitration Act.
The current Arbitration Act doesn't prohibit them. The Information Technology Act, which I gave 2 decades ago, is very neutral. Whatever you do in the physical thing can be done electronically. It gives you. But we need more support in the sense technology support to have an authentication of records, recording of evidence, because it should be tamper proof. And as I told you, so the technology has to be upgraded to suit the integrity of the whole system. That is essential. So I think this is going to happen, and also electronic payment systems. So you will not be able to need to move out of your desk, sitting wherever you are. You will be able to do transact business, conduct awards, and the awards will be filed electronically, and things will be done. Matters then finished.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And there is another question, Kavita Balakrishnan. Even after amendment to banks and financial institutions banks and financial institutions are appointing the same arbitrator for all cases. Is there any modality where there can be a check on these financial institutions? Kavita Balakrishnan, you can unmute if you would like to discuss it.
You can't cure human nature. Human nature is like that. When I was a law secretary, when we were trying to find out, there was a lot of allegation that the same thing, the same arbitrators are preferred in international arbitration by the public sector units. So how do there is a lot of, I mean, there is shady things are happening by these PSUs. The law firms are tied up with them, and they have the same arbitrators doing arbitration. So unless you grease them, you will not get arbitration. Then I said, okay. But then they said, no, arbitration is autonomy, party autonomy. Parties can choose anybody as an arbitrator. How can you impose your will upon them? I said, no. The public sector undertakings are government money, public exchequer, the taxpayers' money. They are accountable. They are not like any other private company whom they can appoint whomever they want. And we need to know whom are you appointing, why are you appointing, what is the track record, what is their conduct, etc. I tried to muzzle in, but then these public sector undertakings, ONGC, Indian Oil, all of them, he said we are autonomous bodies. Ministries cannot impose their will on us. Even at the cabinet secretary level, I tried to do that. I didn't succeed. They said they have way. But this is something which we have to deal with. We can't have. Right now the Arbitration Act does something. It has imposed some limit, cap, and other things. So that will take care of your concern.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir. We have an observation from Ember Vijayan Veeraraghavan, sir. Establishing of Arbitration Council of India, to what extent it would promote arbitrators, especially Indian arbitrators?
No, this is nearly 2 years. Still, it has not been established. The government should go yesterday also there is a petition to the government to start the process immediately. This is required to be done immediately. And this will be necessary because we have to grade arbitration in arbitral institutions. And in fact, I suggested long back when we enacted the Special Economic Zones Act in 2004. I told then Arun Jaitley was the law minister, you have special economic zones, you have global financial institutions coming there. Indian laws do not apply there. Banks are going to come there, insurance companies will come there, and most of the laws have been amended to give them special treatment in the special economic zone where export-oriented projects are there. I said this is the right time to have an arbitration center in the special economic zone where people can come from different countries, come here and arbitrate and go away, and let them not be subject to the Indian laws. At that time, Jaitley could foresee, he said, don't rake up this problem. The Bar Council will oppose this. You keep quiet. You know, the bar, or even now they have a problem. So he said, he was a lawyer. His loyalty was to law. He said, no, don't create nuisance. Keep quiet. You see, special economic zones, you don't have to make a law. It's already there. Then now in Gujarat, they have come up with an international financial center. I wrote to the PMO saying that you start an international legal center, arbitration center there. Then you can have, like Singapore, a global hub of arbitration. People unrelated to Indian law come and do arbitration and go away, because we can offer, our lawyers can go there and argue. They can earn, our lawyers are second to none. So we can have more opportunities for lawyers also. And India will emerge as a hub of internet. That is how Singapore is encouraging. Singapore has now not only captured international arbitration from London and Paris, now they are also emerging as a great international restructuring hub of bankruptcy, distressed assets. People are all going to Singapore and Hong Kong. We should capture this moment. When we drafted the insolvency in bankruptcy code, that was our dream. We wanted India to emerge as a great restructuring hub where the foreign investment will come, and our distressed assets will all be saved instead of being liquidated.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you, sir. I think it was a very radical idea to have a arbitration center inside SEZ.
I think it should be. I think they're going to have it now, whether you like it or not. Ahmedabad, the global financial center, is emerging in a very big way because PM is fully behind it. I think that will set the trend. And Bombay also has this arbitration center, and I think Chennai you also should take up the lead. There will be many, not one, many. We need more and more arbitral institutions, not one. We don't want a monopoly.
Yes, sir. We have a question from Sabes and Monica Vasagam. Sir, when there is a lot of resistance in the courts for online inquiry, how ODR will be received?
No, actually, you see, this resistance is because they are not familiar with the technology. In fact, I gave a report 2 years back to the Ministry of Home Affairs on this video conferencing of witnesses and in the trials, criminal trials. Right now, for the police officers, instead of doing investigation, are hanging around the courts daily. They do not know when the case will come. Resources are lacking. So video conferencing now affords it. Now they're already started doing it. Video conferencing of all witnesses and etc. and expert witnesses. Expert witnesses are not many, and they have to travel because they are not available. Cases get adjourned because of that. But if you have video conferencing testimony, it's very easy. Very easy. People can testify, don't have to move out of the place, and then time shifting is there. So I think this misapprehension has to be, the advantages are many, and it's mainly because of the not familiarity of this technology they are opposing it. Otherwise, we don't have a bandwidth in the local courts. The government should support. I think Madan Lokur gave a big report on e-courts projects. I think this will improve as a bandwidth, and other now more and more the telecom companies are giving you more offers. That will work.
Yes, sir. Yes. Paul Chalakumar sir also has a question. Sir, Paul sir, would you like to discuss it with sir?
Just let him explain it.
Yes, almost. There is another question from Anisa Chaudhary. Sir, there is a lack of arbitration courses in most of the colleges, universities in India. How to overcome this?
Actually, these arbitration courses, etc., I think you should learn online, because we do not have. You see, unfortunately, we started too many law schools, national law schools. We don't have good law teachers. We don't have good law teachers. People are not. That is very important. We need to have. I taught law. I know. We need law teachers who are dedicated law teachers. That is important. There is no point in opening up more and more law schools without people, law teachers with dedication. And otherwise, you find most of the law schools are prospering or scaling new heights because of the intelligence of the students themselves. They are learning themselves. Because right now, learning has become participatory. I used 4 or 5 decades ago when I was lecturing in the Madras Law College. I don't know whether you know. There is a big dinner, and there's a big lecture hall with 100 people. You have to throw your voice. It was very tiresome thing. You have to concentrate, and then now those things have gone. Now people know, the students sitting on the other side know more than what you know. So there's no point in going and repeating what is there in the textbook or something. You have to tell them something which they don't know. And in fact, this is an interactive session where you will learn from them, and and we are asked to. That is how they teach in the Harvard and other law schools, where it's all, you're already told what to read and come and then discussion. So the banking system of knowledge has gone. The pedagogy of the old has gone now. We need to have a new system, interactive session. You have Google, online, YouTube teaching you so many things, and these kind of webinars will go a long way in teaching. And to be frank, I'll tell you, law schools do not give you much thing. They give you only simple highlight what is going to be there. All your learning will be in the courts. When you hang around and when you learn, that is all outside. Your learning will be outside only. What you do in the law school is nothing compared to what you will learn in your course of your career.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir. We have one more question from Sai Bhaskar Parthasarathi. Can ongoing arbitration switch to online even if one party has not cooperated?
See, that becomes difficult. If one party is not cooperating, then it may be difficult. It has to be with the consent of both the parties. But this will be solved if you have an arbitral agreement where you commit yourself to an online process in the beginning itself. I think in future, all arbitration arguments should put in a clause.
Probably, yes, sir. Inbavijan sir also asked, Inbavijan sir, if I'm not mistaken, asked whether we have to put specific clauses in the arbitration agreement for such ODR practice.
Yes, it should be. It is better.
Yes, yes, sir.
You should also identify the service provider who will service you for this. It would be safer also.
We have one more question from Imbavijan sir, whether we need to have specific qualifications for a person to be appointed as arbitrator.
No. Anybody can be appointed an arbitrator because you don't know what sort of dispute is coming.
Yes,
there's no need for a great qualification to be a mediator and arbitrator.
Yes, sir.
Sir, sorry, Doctor sir. I think I specifically put that question based on the recent amendment in the Arbitration Act 2019. There is inclusion of 8 schedules, sir, giving specific qualification for a person to act as an arbitrator. In that perspective, I placed that question, sir.
I think it's not a good move. We are not wondering why it was put in. Not really. It doesn't. You see, you leave it to the parties. Now, why should you do that? Parties will take care of that. They know best, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for patiently taking questions from our participants.
Sir. I've been a law teacher, and I continue to be a law teacher till the end of my life. So it's a pleasure because I learned so many things from interactions.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you so much. I think that brings us to the close of the session. If we don't have any question, yes, sir. Paul, sir, you have something to say.
I just wonder whether what will be his recommendations for family cases, because in cases in family courts are raising like anything, is anything you could suggest that ADR could help such cases, though it's only.
Definitely, ADR will help. ADR will help, but unfortunately, I mean, as a society is going through a very difficult stage in the life, family problems will be more. I think ADR, but we need good people with, who command respect, who can do that. Otherwise, what will happen? It will be only settling scores between both the parties. It doesn't lead anywhere, leading to the, the family breaks up. It's very sad. But definitely ADR should be implemented there. But I don't know how, because the way we are progressing, people's attitude has to change. That, see, it all depends upon the attitudes.
Yeah, that is true, sir. That also goes to psychology, but more than attitudes, most of the youngsters do not understand the value of marriage, and they immediately go for assistance from legal matters, and they think they can be separated easily. But there's no counseling involved much. Even in the family courts, that just they record it, but the individual counseling. So, any recommendation you could give or how to overcome?
No, I see. This is not a legal problem. This is a social problem. You see, what Justice Cardozo said in The Nature of Judicial Process, the controversies of the litigants are the sordid stuff out of which shining truths will emerge. People fight, and then you write jurisprudence. So you find law. You see, law is not a pleasant thing. You should not have recourse to law at all. This is a social problem. It's behind law. When you bring in law, it's misery. It's a misery. Somebody's misery. So so you see, I think we should not leave things to reach a stage where the law, you have to administer law to solve a problem. That is very sad.
Yes, sir. Just they should understand. The party should understand, as you said, the law is not a pleasant one. They think the law can help them. Am I right, sir?
Yeah. You see, this is not winning some. It's not a battle where you win over somebody else. You see, it's something very different. You see, you don't settle scores on this point. This is, you in that process you damage yourself. They are not aware. They learn it in the long run.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a great honor. I thank Bhargavi and Justice Padmanabhan, Paul Chellakumar. Mr. Rafiq, you have not been speaking anything. You wanted to ask anything? Hope you could learn something from today's interaction. I'm very happy. I'm always available to share whatever knowledge, little wisdom or lack of it I have with you, all of you.
Oh, sir, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Firstly, on behalf of everyone, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to you for your valuable time and enlightening and sharing with us your vast knowledge and experience in the legal field.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I'll also wish to express my gratitude to our Honorary Chairman, Justice E. Padmanabhan, for providing us continual guidance and support. I also thank our President, Dr. Paul Chellakumar, for giving us the opportunity and guidance to conduct webinars. Thank you, Sai and Sai, for your sponsor, for all your coordination. And I would also like to thank our wonderful participants, without whom this session could not be possible. And looking forward to meeting you again in the third part of the webinar series on 13th of September.